been a long day, but I think you're going to really appreciate hearing from the next two presenters. It is my pleasure, absolute pleasure, to introduce Lindsey Laret. Lindsey comes to us from a very rich cultural background in Appalachia, and when she came here, she was quite sure about that richness and what it had to offer higher education. The question was a higher education listening? And we kind of know the answer to that by and large. But in her studies and looking at sustainability and looking at fair trade learning and looking at how food can be a way to work with communities, she's discovered some other places that really might be beautiful, wonderful places these things are happening. She has the good fortune to work with Dr. Eric Hartmuth, who you've heard about already, who's from Kansas State University, who works with global service learning, with Bev Santo, who's our own dean here, who's a master teacher and a curriculum designer extraordinaire, entrepreneur, and is an excellent coach. And also Dr. Michelle Collins-Sidley, who's from the University of Mount Union, which is from where Lindsey's from, and who's interested in food sustainability and civic engagement. So I don't want to steal your thunder about what you're going to talk about, but it is a lesson for us to learn how to serve, not just to serve.
All right, so before I get started, I have a little thing that I'm hoping you will all indulge me in and do with me. I'm going to put this down because I think I can't pass it up. So I have note cards, 3 different colors, so if you could just pick your favorite color, and then pass them down, make sure everyone gets one, that would be great. So when you get a note card, you can write this down on your card to help you remember throughout the presentation, but I'm hoping through this process to collect more targeted feedback. I want this to be worthwhile and worthwhile of your time. So if you have a blue card, if you could focus on the question, what terms and or language did you hear that you would like to have further explained? Sounds fairly basic, so if you want to keep it simple today, you get a blue card. Purple, if someone who wasn't here asked you to summarize what I talked about in a few sentences, what would you tell them? I'm trying to ensure that what I have in my brain about all of this is what I'm actually communicating. It's a fun exercise that we've done throughout the program, and I've found it to be very useful. So, and a lot of what I've been thinking here lately has changed, and so, again, making sure that what's in here is what's coming out and being expressed. So if you can help me do that. And then if you have a green card, did anything I said make you think of a connection to your life? And of depth, if you'd be willing to explain. So on the back of your card, on the line side of your card, if you want to write out the answers to any of your questions. And if you would prefer to not participate, then I'll help you. And if you're colorblind and you can't tell the difference between a blue and a purple and a green card, then just pick, and I apologize for the lack of inclusivity. So, moving on, getting started. So I'm going to ask you to indulge me a little bit as we move forward. This will become a bit more academically rigorous, but the first few slides, I apologize for their non-academic nature. So I'm going to take you through sort of my journey here over the last couple of years. And right before the PhD program, I worked a lot, and I didn't have a lot of time, or didn't make a lot of time for hobbies, other than reading. I really like to read. And my job was one that required me to travel quite extensively, recruiting international students for the university where I work. I work at the University of Mount Union, which is very close to Appalachia, depending on who you're talking to. And I cried a lot. I really didn't like my job, and I didn't feel that what I was doing was contributing positively to society, and it wasn't even benign work, I thought it was actually detrimental to society, and so I was upset about it. So then I had this epiphany. Last slide that looks like this. So I had this epiphany. I wanted to work in an environment, the type of environment that nourished me as a child in Lindsey Laret. Those environments are, I was a Girl Scout and I loved going to camp, and I wanted to work in something that looked like a state park or that looked like nature, and why can't higher education environments look like that? So I had this big idea that I was going to start a college that looked like the kind of place that I would want to work in. And certainly, I couldn't be the only person who would want to live and work in this type of environment. So that was sort of the very basic concept, and I decided that I think I need a PhD for this. So not for camping in the mountains, for starting a college. So in year one of the program, I researched, I decided that I would probably need to, before I set out to design a college, I needed to learn a lot about what colleges already exist, and what the barriers are for people like myself. As Noelle said, I come from an Appalachian county in Ohio, and that is a pretty big part of who I am. I never really felt like I fit in the college, the small private suburban campus that I attended, that I now work at, so I've just let that problem continue in my life. So I didn't feel like I fit in there, I still don't, and I wanted to know what the barriers were for people like me. So Beth Macy, 2000, don't feel like I can say a last name anymore without saying the year after it. So Beth Macy was this author who talked about the 6 keys for success for Appalachian students, first-generation students in college. And I read her article, and I was totally on board, and there were things like familiarity with financial aid processes and having a former or a family member go to college before you and different things. And so they all made sense. And then I got to the last one, and it really stood out to me, and I was offended because that key for success was for college administrators to help these students overcome their family culture. And if you've been around me for the last couple of years, you've heard me say this line a lot. Help them overcome their family culture, as if a culture is something to overcome, and as if higher education is only suitable for one particular monoculture. So I thought that was ludicrous, and I still do. So throughout the first year, I started to articulate what a different type of higher education environment might look like. And so in that first year, I called this a subsistence university, and these were the qualities of a subsistence university that I articulated in that first year. So Appalachian family culture is respected, or the culture of wherever a university is located, or whatever its population is. The community is involved in its development from brainstorming through physical completion and implementation of programs. Parents and families have a symbiotic relationship with the school, all thriving as a result of the partnership. And then the next one is important. Appalachian counties are not known for being very economically flourishing communities. And so for the rising cost of education, if there's some way to overcome that, that would be wonderful. And then the Appalachian work ethic is honored, understanding that working harder, there's this saying, work harder, not smarter. And I, again, find that to be somewhat short-sighted, because often working quickly and smartly, as we're doing now, with lots of advanced technologies and so on, has unintended consequences. So this is what I articulated in year one. So then in years 2 and 3, I won't talk too much about fair trade going because I feel like we've heard a lot about it today. But helping the way you're needed is, I think, for me, the embodiment of what fair trade learning is all about. So in a service learning setting, I work with students. I work in student affairs at the university. I've switched jobs since the crying days. I have a new job. At the same school though, but so a story to help explain what helping the way you needed is, not related to school at all. So pause for a moment. So I was teaching high school Spanish for a while back in the day, and I came home. I had parent-teacher conferences, and I came home one night to make dinner for my husband because that seemed like a nice thing to do. And he said, I have to get back really quick. This is what I'm making, and I'm all frantic, rushing in the kitchen. And he says, "Can I help?" Yes, you can. That would be great. And so I handed him some peppers or onions or something to chop. And he says, "Well, why don't we get this?" I said, "Well, I don't have that, and that would require going to the store, which I don't have time for, so nope, how about not that?" And he says, "Well, what about this?" "No." "Well, here, why don't I do this?" And anyway, he ended up just being more in the way than he was helpful. He was intending to be helpful, but eventually I said to him, "Okay, help the way I need you to help, but don't help at all." Because helping can actually sometimes be harmful. So helping the way you need is doing what's needed, and the way to do that is to find out what's needed, to ask the questions. And so I think that's what Fair Trade Learning is all about, is going to these communities. And so far, Fair Trade Learning has been applied internationally in a global service learning setting. But ask the questions of the community that you're going to visit and say, how can we help? How can we serve you? And I think that would be suitable for a higher education environment that I would start, or anybody else would be starting. How is this education suited to the community in which it's located? So now, I'm looking ahead, and I spent the last semester researching and visiting a particular college that seems to be doing a lot of what I've been talking about, all that I articulated in that first year. So it's called Alice Lloyd College. It is a work college. Janet earlier talked about her daughter going to Warren Wilson, which is also a work college. So if you're familiar with Warren Wilson, it's one of the more famous ones. Alice Lloyd is a very not famous one, located in Kentucky. Berea College is another in Kentucky, better known. But Alice Lloyd is about 600 students, very small, and they are located in the mountains of Appalachia, which you can see is a really important part of their identity. They, sort of their slogan is creating leaders for Appalachia. And so that's their mountain, that's at their entrance to the college. So, I don't know how well you can see this, but this is sort of a grandiose thing in one of their buildings. And it's the Purpose Road philosophy. And they teach the students, all students in their leadership class, have to take a class, have to learn about the Purpose Road. And Alice Lloyd was the founder of the college, and she said that everyone should walk the Purpose Road. You should have a purpose that is in service to your community, have some sort of civic purpose behind your life. So your purpose is not to get a great job and become wealthy. That is not an adequate purpose, according to Alice Lloyd. One of my favorite stories is that Alice Lloyd told was this little boy wanted to go to Alice Lloyd College, and it's actually a K through 16 system. So he was in the K through whatever, 3, I don't know how old he was, but he was a younger student in the system, and he was talking to Alice Lloyd, and I really want to get into the college. And she said, well, that's great. What do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, I want to be a baseball player. And she said, you know, we don't need one of those, so you should probably go to a different college. So it was that ingrained that your life should be in service to your community. You should serve some sort of public good. So that's the Purpose Road philosophy in a nutshell. A light unto the mountains, this is just demonstrating once again. This is a statue sort of in the middle of campus, that they are very much oriented towards serving the Appalachian people. Most of their graduates do not move away. They are expected in exchange for their free tuition and the work that they do they are expected to stay and serve the region. So I talked about wanting to work in an environment that looked like a camp growing up or a state park, and their campus very much looked like that. So this is one of their buildings, and this is Caney Creek, which is very important to the college. There's a book about the college. It used to be called Caney Creek College or Caney Creek Community Center, and so the miracle on Caney Creek is that this college started and has provided such great leadership for the region. This is the Founder's Shack on my own campus where I work. No one would ever dream of keeping a building that looked like this building does, but this was the home that they built for Alice Lloyd when she first got there in the early 1900s. And she said, if you build me a home, I will stay and I will educate your children, and that's what happened. So Alice Lloyd really embodies all of the things that I had said initially that I wanted a campus, the subsistence university, to look like. So each and every one of these things that we've already gone through is present at Alice Lloyd. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel. As Andrew said earlier, he didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I don't want to either. So a subsistence university, I was interested in the way that subsistence and sustainability are related. These values of self-reliance and having work ethic and so on, can those lead to sustainability? And I think there's very much a civic engagement, a social justice bent on campus at Alice Lloyd. But I said in my dissertation proposal, I wrote something about, I think sustainability will be a part of the fabric of life at Alice Lloyd. And one of my committee members wrote there, he said, how does coal, trucks, and something else fit into this? And he said, I'm not convinced, period. And so this was before I went and visited campus, and he raised a very good point. This is the standard license plate. It was on nearly every vehicle. Coal keeps the lights on, Friends of Coal was a sticker that this person had added, and the woman who hosted me, my mentor in a course that I took this semester, this was her license plate. So yeah, it is a very interesting dynamic that people who are so bent on social justice and service to their community live in. I think poverty is a big contributing factor, but they are very committed to this coal culture, which in many ways has been problematic has slowed down the progress of the region. So what's the point? What's happening next? So through overt instruction and cultural norming, Alice Lloyd College applies fair trade learning principles to cultivate a sense of civic responsibility in students and maintain positive relationships with local stakeholders by means that are culturally appropriate to the Appalachian region. So this cultural appropriateness of education is something that as I said, I've been thinking on since the very beginning of the program. And then how fair trade learning is in action. Let's keep going. So this is my thesis statement. This is what I believe, and I'm hoping to be able to demonstrate through my research. And then these are the central questions that support that. So, how is LC's approach to education culturally appropriate to the region? What fair trade learning principles can be seen in application? Why does this matter, you might ask? If they're doing something and it's great and it's working, why do we need to call it something other than what they call it? And the answer to that is simply that through the year of working with Eric Hartman, who everyone else has talked about, he, again, it's been applied internationally only, and one of the major goals that I set out for myself was to demonstrate that fair trade learning principles are very applicable to domestic relationships. So should be and can be implemented and used successfully for positive community building here in the US. And then what elements of character are intentionally cultivated at Alice Lloyd, and how might the cultivation of these elements contribute to social, economic, and or environmental justice? And so the environmental justice piece, I might not find connections there. I think I will to some degree because of the traditional ecological knowledge that is so much a part of life. But the social and economic pieces, I think, are going to be very present. And the values that I think are, from what I've read and studied so far, observed so far, I think the values that I'll be stating are the work ethic, for sure. Students work 10 to 15 hours per week in exchange for free tuition. So the work ethic, for sure. And then a service orientation, living a life of service. And then self-reliance. So that subsistence lifestyle and how that is or is not sustainable. So the research design, I'm doing ethnography, and I will be carrying out qualitative interviews, photo elicitation, based interviews with approximately 10 students, more if I can recruit more, but hopefully no fewer than 10. And then I'm doing focus groups with faculty and staff because they've been very eager to participate. So working with those groups to figure out what is the culture of Alice Lloyd. Is the lived culture congruent with the espoused culture? All of these really great civic engagement, purpose-driven life things that they've articulated, are they still in action and in practice on campus? We're going to skip that. So does anyone have questions? That's all I've got.
Thanks for this. So I'm wondering what has been something so far that's really stood out for you about this college that is especially inspiring or different from some of the other places you thought about going to?
Sure. So there are 7 more colleges, and I chose Alice Lloyd very intentionally. But I could describe that process of selecting. But to get to the question, I did a site visit in April and stayed on campus, and I went to observe a particular event, which is their work college or their work honors convocation. So the students are required to work. All freshmen are required to do custodial work, and then they can move up from there as they move through a 4-year program. But I got to go and witness them, the students being honored for the work that they did throughout the year. So it's one day, no work, no classes, they take the day off and they celebrate. And so they had the convocation, they had the award ceremony. They went outside, they had a picnic, and after the picnic, there was a work Olympics where faculty and staff, there are 14 work teams. So faculty, staff, and students that represented each work team, they had this Olympic battle. They competed, and so something so small and silly, but I just was so impressed as someone who does a lot of event planning on campus. I wish this was the culture on campus. So they have the picnic, and then someone got on a bullhorn and said, "All right, in 5 minutes, the Olympics start." That was all this person said, and all 600 students were there because it's a required component, and everyone was there. Nearly everyone was there, and all 600 students just instantly went to work to clean up the picnic, to put the food away, to clean the trash, to take it not just to the trash can, to take the bags out of the trash can, take it to the dumpsters, and it was spotless. You would have had no idea that close to 700 people with faculty and staff, close to 700 people had just had a gigantic meal there. So that was something that I took away. The sense of responsibility that they have for their place is really cool.
Thank you very much, Lindsey. It's been fun to see this develop over the last few years and see where you're at with this. So one of the things I was thinking about as you were presenting, and I think a lot of us deal with this, but you're going to have this, I assume, some disconnect or discordance between kind of the principles that you're looking for and what's actually happening. And I'm wondering if you thought about how you're going to communicate that yet. And that's been asked of me so far, and I don't have a good answer.
I was going to say,
So Roland, you have an answer of some sort.
Yeah. So a great question. So obviously, like with the coal culture, things like that, there is some dissonance between what I believe and what is lived, and but I'm trying to tread very carefully and respect the culture. My goal is to go in and determine what the culture is there without trying to put my own spin on this is what I think it should be, and try to sort of subjugate my own thoughts on that for now. And I think that's the best answer I have so far. I'll let you know how it unfolds, or you let me know how yours unfolds.
What components of your work will be using photo elicitation, and what you intend to gather, how you intend to approach that?
Yeah, great question. And I didn't elaborate on that too much because it's at 37 seconds when I got to that point. But the photo elicitation, I'm doing interviews, as I said, and what I'm hoping to do is have the students bring to those interviews photos of things that have been significant, that they think are important parts of their Alice Floyd experience. So I want to do that, but then also to have them give me a tour of campus so that we can sort of have a conversation in a more relaxed way, but have them give me a tour of campus and have them take me to the things that they think I should have pictures of. And so I'll have hopefully a collection of both things that they've taken and things that they've shown me.
You mentioned that many of the students, just that they stay in the area, whether for whatever reason that it was part of culture or whatnot. Do you anticipate having any interactions with alumni and talking about community engagement and connection with the college students?
So in my original plan, my really grandiose plan, I was going to talk to students as well as faculty, staff, alumni, community members. I wanted to get this very holistic look at perspective. But my mentor has really strongly encouraged me to talk to alumni. And when I went down, at first I thought, well, gosh, that's going to be hard, and when am I going to be able to find them on campus? And then I went down and realized, well, on every street corner, well, that building, that business was founded by an alum, and this one and that one, and so I think they will be very actually accessible in reality. And I've also been encouraged to come down and witness their homecoming, because apparently it's quite a turnout. And they don't call it homecoming, they call it Appalachian Day, and they have handicrafts, and students make them with community members, and so it's just a very, very different sort of homecoming experience. So I will be observing that portion, that component, cultural artifact, so to speak, and then possibly incorporating a focus group of alumni if I can find an interested group, which I think I probably will. Who else?
Hi. I wonder if where you work currently knows about your research and how they feel, or what sort of reactions you're getting about that.
Great question. So I very fortunately moved into student affairs, which is a much more liberal-minded group of people, and so yes, they are very well aware of what I'm doing. This "Help the Way You're Needed" slogan has really spread like wildfire in student affairs. So they're very supportive. The Dean of Students knows. They've not actually read anything, so maybe they would feel differently if they knew all of the nitty-gritty. But so far, I've had only positive reactions. There is a serious retention push on campus right now, and concern for why we're not retaining students at the level that we did 2, 3, 4 years ago. And so I have sort of been vocal about, have we considered the cultural fit here? Are we assuming a monoculture is appropriate here? And I think the answer is yes. That was where I had the offset. So I hope that answers your question.
Hi, I also have roots.
Oh, there you are.
I also have Appalachian roots, and you mentioned at the beginning how they incorporate family into the university. I think that's really important. I don't know if you've ever read, there's a book called This Fine Place So Far From Home. And it describes the tension between culture and academia of working class families. And I know in my own family, it was a real struggle. My mother had a 6th grade education from West Virginia. And it really created kind of a communication barrier between me and my family. And so I'm just wondering, how they address that. Because I think that that's, a real issue. I think there are some negatives, in that respect from academia when you look at that relationship with family and mountain culture. So,
Yeah. So you're asking how Alice Lloyd addresses that?
yes.
Yes. Okay. So, so this idea of a community-driven college is is very much in action at Alice Lloyd. So it was founded by this woman named Alice Lloyd and her counterpart June Buchanan. The K-12 school is named after June Buchanan. And they went as people from the East, from New England, and had no connection to the place at all, and were smart enough to realize and to know that they could not be successful without the buy-in of the community, of the families there. And so from the outset, it has been a kind of environment that was built on sitting down and having interactions face-to-face with the community to say, what do you need? And they went not necessarily to start a school, they went to help the mountain people and whatever that meant. And so a school is what the mountain people said they needed more than 100 years ago. But that commitment to helping the way they're needed has continued to be a part of the fabric of their culture. And so there are lots and lots and lots of legacy students. Many of they're primarily Appalachian students. They do take some from outside of the region, but primarily Appalachian, and they are not primarily first generation, which is very interesting. There's lots and lots of stuff.
So I'd like to say something in response to that, because I grew up in a family where my parents were farmers and only had a few years of formal education, and my former graduate student studied social dialect, and our social dialect is the language we speak at home. And for me, I think what we need to think about is how it is we're bilingual, and that we don't speak with our families the way we do. This is academic discourse. It's appropriate here, and recognizing that it's exactly what Lindsey started with. We are not asking, I would hope we never ask people to overcome their social dialect, their home culture in any situation, but that we honor and respect it. And when I'm with my family, I don't speak the way I do in this institution. And I think that what creates the barrier is the fear that we have somehow abandoned our families because we think we're better than they are. So it's our job to make sure, I think, that we cross that bridge. Amen.